Hi, this is a conversation that I recorded with Barbara Sullivan. Barbara Sullivan is the Executive Director of Village to Village Network. That group, Village to Village Network, was created some years back as a resource to help people stay in their homes to age in place as long as it was reasonably safe to do so. I think if you took a poll, a lot of people would say, yes, I do want to stay at my house as long as I can during my retirement years. It's familiar, and quite frankly, it'll help your retirement dollars stretch further because retirement facilities are not known to be inexpensive. So it might be worthwhile to look into village resources in your community. I know we have a strong presence here in Charlotte. You can go to their website to get more information, but let's hear Barbara talk about what Village Network brings to your community. So let's just get started. Barbara, thank you for spending time with me this afternoon. Can you tell us a little bit about, this is Barbara Sullivan, by the way, can you tell us about your role with Village to Village Network?
Sure. Well, thank you, Drew. Appreciate the opportunity. My role, I'm the Executive Director of Village to Village Network, which is a membership organization bringing together communities across the country who have established a village, a network of support services in communities throughout the United States.
When you're talking about the villages, you're not talking about a physical community.
Village movement started with a core group of people looking at what's needed to age in place. And, on the top of the list is transportation, support in the home, non-medical. It is programs. We're going to talk today a little bit about before COVID and now during COVID. But, the village movement and the model for aging under the village model is a volunteer first. They're all grassroots, and they serve the community that they live in. So you can see there are some villages, of the village movement down in Florida, in different areas. There's one in Charlotte. There's several in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. We have about 350 throughout the United States. They can be a homeowners association where people live in their own homes. It can be a naturally occurring retirement, a NORC, what we call a NORC, an apartment house that's basically seniors. And what they do is they form through volunteers a support service. Okay, how would this be different than a senior center? There's a lot of, I know here in Charlotte that we have a senior center that's very active. What are some of the things that a member would get from village to village being involved in that network that wouldn't be available through a typical senior center? The village is different because it is, one-on-one, it's member oriented. And so when you join a village as a member, you have a central place where a member can call and say, listen, I have, it sounds cliche, a light out in my kitchen and I can't get on the ladder. Can you have, a volunteer come over and help me, change the light bulb? Or somebody calling and saying, I'm out of my prescriptions and I need to, have them picked up at the pharmacy. They may be homebound. And so they need that extra support to, maintain safety and being in their home. Senior centers are definitely, the brick and mortar, like I said, but at the end of the day, when somebody goes home, who helps the person in their home setting? And these are support services and a connection, a grassroots connection within the community. And again, you go back to that whole neighbor helping neighbor.
I mean, note here, you have 350 villages, networks around the United States. Where has the growth been? Has it been recently?
In answer to your question, the big explosion, we started, I think, in 2010, we had about 68 villages, and they were primarily Boston, the Mid-Atlantic, Washington, D.C. was a big explosion, the metro area, I should say. Chicago, and California. Those were the big hotspots.
All right, so the villages are probably going to be different sizes, right? But what's your typical size village?
Anywhere from 100 to 130, but there are smaller ones. And there are pretty much two classifications of villages. One that is, an all volunteer, pretty much no dues or very low dues, annual dues to join the membership. And we're talking like $50 a year to like $100 a year for some of the all volunteer villages. And then you've got villages that are paid staff.
So each village is self-sufficient?
Yes. So it's not a franchise. People say, oh yeah, so can I buy into the franchise? I'm like, yeah, you can form a group of people in your community and you can start a village. And here's that's what the network, Village to Village Network does, is has thousands of documents to help communities start a village, from the Village 101 toolkit to how to, apply for your 501c3 to, how to encourage volunteers or recruit members, provide services, you name it.
What kind of participation do you need to have? How many other village people do you need?
You have to have a core group of volunteers who are dedicated to, organizing and seeing this, through the next steps. It takes an average of about 2 years to get a village up and running really successfully, because there's strategic planning and a business plan, just like any other business.
How is the network responding to COVID lockdowns and
yeah, I know.
being able to interact with the people who need?
The most challenging part of all of it was, we had very proudly boasted that we were successful in combating social isolation, by doing the programs through, our village, members and the different villages throughout the country. And so when COVID hit, that shut it down. And so a lot of seniors had to relearn what we're doing, the Zoom stuff and things online. And many seniors don't want to do it. They don't want to participate on a Zoom call. And so they went back, our village network went back to the grassroots model where you pick up the phone, you call that member like once or twice a week. How are you doing? Do you need anything? Just a friendly, chat, a drive-by and a wave, that type of thing. Really getting back to before we had social media, before we had all, the hustle and bustle, just picking up a regular phone and keeping in touch with, folks who are living at home and living through this.
How do you interact with those, I guess, should we call them the sandwich generation? You know what I mean? The adult children who are worried about their elderly parents. Is there any communication?
All the time.
Okay.
But we have a lot of adult children who moved away, and they love the support services and know peace of mind that there's a place you can call that knows your parent and can help with whatever situation, whether it's finding a plumber, finding, making sure they're not being scammed. We had an instance where I had a member who landed in the emergency room, and thank God she was fine, but she was going to be there for a couple of days, and her dog was at home.
Oh, yeah.
And she lives alone. And so we got the keys. We had another member who lives around the corner, got the dog, made arrangements for the kennel. Boom, done.
I mentioned before, it's a comfort to adult children knowing that their parents are being looked after, but it's also probably a huge comfort to the parents that they don't need to rely on their children.
Or
that
their
they have
friends
that,
or neighbors. Yeah.
That they have that. Unfortunately, as we get older, our freedoms become less. We're restricted on some of the things that we can do, and we don't always want to be have to have our children at our beck and call, and especially if they're out of town and they need to make arrangements to come in and things like that. So I can certainly understand how this is an organization that helps families on all levels.
I love this. I love telling the story about, I had a member who had some really, really bad knees. She lived on a hill and the mailbox was at the bottom of her driveway. And she just had a tough time going down to get the mail. And so I went to the post office and I asked the mail carrier, I said, do you mind if I just move the the mailbox up to next to her door? And he goes, no, that's a federal offense. Like, okay. So I said, what do we do? And he goes, well, he came around and he said, give me the address. And he went to visit her and he moved it for her. And it's just, it's peace of mind. She wanted to get her mail. And,
Right, sure.
it's, little connection, little dots to help people, stay active, stay engaged, stay connected within their community. And that's a huge component for adult children, a relief that, they're getting to their doctor's appointments, they're getting their medicines, they're being, they're staying healthy, they're getting food, that type of thing.
Hopefully people are listening to this, watching our video here, and they're thinking, wow, this sounds great. How do I get involved? What's the next step for someone who wants to get involved?
The next step is talking to 2 or 3 other friends and envisioning, what you look as your plan B now. We all have plan A, which is life as we, live it. Plan B for a senior is, what happens if I hit the bump in the road? Or as I age, what services, I have macular at some point. Maybe I'm going to have to stop driving. What happens then? And so looking at what existing, if somebody's looking to start a village, looking at your services, looking to see if you have a core group of people who are going to research this and follow it through, and then calling us and connecting you with some of our documents and step-by-step instructions on, how to create your own village in your community.
But as you had mentioned, there's 350, according to my notes, approximately 350 villages in the United States. So they could very well find one already established in their community.
Absolutely. And the growing trend, which is really interesting, I just talked to one of our villages in Delaware. There's an existing village in Lewes, Delaware, and they had a neighboring town, a group of people that really wanted to do it. They were about 20 miles away, 25 miles away. And they talked to them. And so now they've become what we call a hub and spoke. So the first village that opened has all the resources and they have, the 501c3. So the spoke didn't have to recreate all the corporate documents and all that stuff, and basically just concentrate on getting some volunteers, getting some neighbors to join and starting their own village. It's really refreshing to see, this twist in what we originally started and expanding it and sharing services, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Well, I suspect that demand for this is just going to increase as more people become aware of it. So I think it's great what y'all are doing there. Website is, we'll list that on the information below, but
the website is www.v as in Victor, T as in Tom, V as in Victor, network.org.
So Barbara, we talked about what it takes to create a village, all of the paperwork and all that might be involved. Not that it should be overwhelming, but can you share some of the characteristics of what a village network might look like?
It's a good question because when we started out, it really was that white middle class, model. And now it has evolved into communities, villages that, serve the individual communities. So we have expanded our model and people have taken it and created their village through their own economic and social networks. In other words, We have a diverse group who are coming out of faith-based organizations. We have a village that is formed and is operational in a subsidized housing complex in Oakland, California, and it is all Asian American. We have a group in Anacostia with an African American community. So the model is great, and it is expanding beyond that original thought and really going into different cultures and diverse communities.
Well, there's a universal need regardless of what your background
Right.
is. I mean, as
Right.
we age, we want certain protections to our comforts and our health and our lifestyle. So
Right.
what the villages bring to the table cuts through all of that. Barbara, thanks for your time this afternoon. I hope this helps anybody listening who might be trying to find ways to maybe take care of themselves or maybe to help their parents. So I'm very happy that we had a chance to talk. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it also.